I'm Jari Ihama from Finvera, working as a finance manager with the growth and internationalization team. So mainly taking care of the domestic financing, but also the export financing. And today, I'm not giving a big presentation on Finvera, but a couple of examples of how to do business in Middle East, in Saudi Arabia and Iran. And what Finvera does is we supplement the financial markets. So what it means, we always we work together with the banks. So we don't finance ourselves, but we always have the, let's say, other financiers with us. But when things get a bit too risky, then we are sharing the risk. And why should you use export credit guarantees? This is for both the companies doing business in Iran or Iraq or Saudi Arabia, or even Middle East. But then also the people, for the people who are working with the companies. So I hope you remember the basic idea behind this, so you can suggest these services when you get to that point that you are starting to negotiate business. But to exporters, the main benefits are, of course, the payment is usually, we are able to get the money quicker to Finland. So you get on the payment on cash basis. But then the other part is also that you probably don't know the partners you are dealing with in the Middle East. So you know some of the companies, you have met them, but you don't really understand their business. You don't know all the details of their business. So with the credit guarantees, you can also insure all your invoices and insure all your accounts receivable. So you can be sure that you get your money somehow. Whether you are selling with an invoice or the letter of credit, I'm going to show you a bit later on. And then the other part for the borrowers, with the bigger projects or even smaller ones, we can offer a whole lot longer payment terms. You don't necessarily always have to sell with, let's say, an invoice with 14 days payment period. So with the services Finvera provides, sorry, I'll just take my clock with me. So there's one. So you can offer, let's say, competitive pricing, competitive payment terms, because the other companies competing with you in those markets are offering them. German companies are a good example of saying that you have the cash price in here, then you have the price for 6-month period, and then you have the price for 3 years financing. And they are offering these services, so it's important that also the Finnish companies know how to be able to service these kind of tenders. And then the last one to lenders, it usually meaning the big international banks. We can offer them credit guarantees and protect them against credit risks. So they are able to offer this longer term financing. But today we are concentrating on the first two ones. And what kind of risks we cover are the political risks and the commercial risks. Especially in the Middle East, the political risks are a real risk. There might be some kind of, let's say, restrictions on currency transfers. People doing business in Iran at the moment or Iraq, it's hard to get dollars out. So the money flow isn't that great compared to the EU or the Western countries. Then, of course, the insolvency of a state, that's not that big of a deal. Expropriations means that the government takes your land or your properties. War, insurrection, or some other kind of emergencies. Happens all the time in there, as you know. And the markets are opening at the moment, so Iran, Iraq, they are opening, Saudi Arabia, United UAE, those we have been dealing quite a long time. But still the political risks are there. And the other part is the commercial risk, the buyer's inability or unwillingness to pay. And this is a good word. Unwillingness to pay. It doesn't mean that you have to show that they are bankrupt. You don't have to have, let's say, the legal procedures to go through there saying that they are bankrupt, they can't pay us. If you are selling with an invoice, you can get an insurance for it. And if they don't pay, let's say after 60 days, 90 days, you can get your money covered by the credit insurance. And you don't have to show any, let's say, legal reason for that. And then, if you wish to take some, let's say, basic idea of the countries you are dealing with, we have this kind of map in the webpage of Finvera, www.finvera.fi, and on the export side. And it's an interactive map. You can go to any country. You can see an updated country rating and classification in there. And then there are always also few, let's say, few suggestions how to do business there. Can we offer long-term financing? Should we always use letter of credits? Whether it would be plausible to even use invoice. But that can be found from our webpage. But then the educational part, because we are at least in the university. So these are, let's say, the two main ways, case one and case two. This is the for the smaller deals, and let's say payment periods up to 6 months, maybe even 1 year, or anything from 30 days or 90 days. But selling leather-made accessories to Saudi Arabia, this is an actual case from our system. I can't, of course, tell you names, but it's a deal we have done. And as you see, we have got a couple of arrows. I'll try to explain how this works. So contract size in this case was 15,000 euros per delivery. They were selling stuff usually on a 3-month basis. It could be 4-month basis, 1-month basis, even monthly. And what we did, we offered a continuous credit limit for the customer. So in this case, the exporter here is the Finnish company. They sell the leather goods here to the buyer. And what Finvera does is that we take a credit assessment on the buyer. We check all the, let's say, the legal aspects. We take a credit assessment report, and then we also check the finances. And after that, we can say, well, this is a good customer, everything seems to be okay. We can offer a credit line of, let's say, 100,000 euros, 200,000 euros, or tens of millions of euros. And then we open the credit line, and the exporter can operate under that credit line during the year. And every time the company exporter sends goods to Saudi Arabia, then he asks for the export receivables guarantee from Finvera, which covers 90% usually of the invoice. So they can sell with an invoice with the payment terms of 90 days. It could even be 120 days, 180 days. But that is usually required. 75 to 90 days is a kind of like a standard in there. So usually you don't get your money in 14 days or 30 days. And then you get the export receivables guarantee, so you know that if the buyer doesn't pay the invoice after that 90 days, you will get your money somewhere. If you can wait for 90 days or 120 days, it's okay, then you don't have to do anything but wait for them to pay. But usually the Finnish SMEs can't wait for 90 days to get their money. And what we do in this case is that we transfer the rights of this export receivables guarantee to the exporter's bank. So here in Finland, Nordea, Osuuspankki, Danske Bank, Handelsbanken are the main ones doing business in there. And then the bank can discount the value of the invoice directly to the exporter, so-called export factoring. So you can sell with an invoice. You can even offer, let's say, for you, my good friend, I will offer you 180 days of payment time. And once again, you are building the trust in there. And then you get the export credits guarantee for it, and you can get your money instantly. So you don't have to wait for that 6 months. And this is let's say, one way of doing business, but you will have to have a good buyer in the country you're selling to. So as we get the credit assessment report, we can't deal with everybody. It can't be newly established business. It can't be, let's say, small one-man businesses. So it has to have some kind of credit history or credit rating. We are not, let's say, it's a volume product for us. So if it's a basic company with basic numbers and it has operated a long time, some time, we usually can start with something like 50,000 euros or 100,000 euros. And even up to 2 million euros, we can just operate with the credit reports we get. When we go past 2 million euros, then we will usually start doing our own risk assessment of the company. That usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 1 month. But when we get the credit report of the buyer, that usually takes about 2 weeks. So when you are negotiating the business, you get all the terms done, and then the customer asks you that, can I pay with an invoice? Then you shake their hands and say that I will find out, and you leave the room and call us, and we take about 2 weeks checking the buyer, checking the credit ratings, and then you go back that now we are done, and I can offer you, let's say, 90 days of invoicing payment time. But this is the basic and most simple way, and the good part of this is that the buyer doesn't have to do anything. You know the buyer, you ask Finnvera to get the credit rating. So everything happens here in Finland, and the Exporters Bank give you the money. So the buyer doesn't have to go to a local bank. They don't have to show their creditworthiness. They don't have to negotiate anything. Everything happens here in Finland, so it can be easily done. The buyer just has to sign, of course, the contract, sales contract. So for the companies in businesses in here, this is the best way, easy and not the best way, this is the easiest way of doing business. But then the people who are, all the other people here who are working with the companies, just remember the basic idea and tell them if you are negotiating or operating together with a Finnish company, please ask them to contact us so we can go through this idea. But this can be done in some of the countries. Iraq, Iran, maybe not the best of choices, but Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, those are countries with a good country rating, so selling with an invoice is okay. But when you are, let's say, doing bigger deals, in this case, this is also an actual contract here from Finland, and this case is actually made by a company in Satakunta. So a delivery of 1.5 million euros. This is a bigger one. As said, well, let's go a bit back. In here we have 15,000 euros. We can start with as little as 5,000 euros, I think, at the moment, and we can go up to tens of millions of euros. But when dealing with an invoice, usually we are talking about hundreds of thousands or a couple of millions max. When we go to the bigger end, I checked the recent cases we have done in there, somewhere plus 100 million, so we can do big cases. But for the Finnish SMEs, usually a 1.5 million euros case is also a big one. But then the buyer in this case expects a 1 year payment period. And we are selling to Iran in this case. The country rating isn't that good yet. We don't have that much history of giving credit guarantees to Iran. So we have quite small country limit at the moment. So we can't do, let's say, big cases instantly unless we get an issuing bank involved from Iran. And that's why usually when selling to Iran at the moment or Iraq, we have to use letter of credits, meaning remburssi in Finnish. And that is the, let's say, the securest way of doing business in these countries. And how it works is that in these cases, it was machinery sold to Iran, contract value 1.5 million euros. Usually there is some kind of down payment, let's say 15 to 20% down payment. In this case, I didn't take it as an example, but usually try to get some money beforehand, at least the 15%. And the rest remaining could be done with the letter of credits or other means. And once again here, the exporter, you have the delivery contract. In here we have irrevocable letter of credit as the term of payment, meaning the irrevocable meaning that once it's open, it can't be cancelled anymore. So there is no way that the buyer can cancel it after the letter of credit has been opened. So it's secure for you to start manufacturing the product, because usually it takes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months when you are manufacturing your products or machines in this case. And let's say after 3 months your customer says, oh, oops, I don't want to buy anymore. That's not possible when you are dealing with letter of credit. So the irrevocable means it can't be taken back. So you can be sure that if the customer doesn't want to pay, you will get your money anyways. But what it means is that the buyer, in this case in Iran, went to a local bank, Bank of Iran, I can't remember the bank's name in this case, but we have our own bank analysts in Finnvera, so we always check whether this bank is acceptable for us and how big of a risk can we take it. Usually they have to be investment grade internationally operating banks. But the buyer has to go to the foreign bank in this case. So that it's a bit harder than just selling with an invoice. Now the buyer has to do some kind of operations. The CEO or the CFO in the buyer has to go to the local Iranian bank in this case and request to issue a letter of credit with a payment period of 360 days. And this is usually why your customers start saying that, do we have to use letter of credits? We don't want to use them. Can't we just sell with an invoice? Don't you trust me? And all the excuses. Because the buyer, when he or she goes to the foreign bank in here, The Iranian bank usually requires some kind of collateral. They probably want to have a bank guarantee for the letter of credit. So the buyer in Iran has to have some kind of collateral offering to the bank. Of course, it's the first check whether you are dealing with a good buyer. If they don't have any collateral, if they are not creditworthy, they can't open the letter of credit. But if they can open the letter of credit, the Iranian bank trusts them enough. That's why it's good. And the other good reason about it is that letter of credit means that the Iranian issuing bank promises you to pay the money when the exporter just delivers the terms in the letter of credit. So when you are making the delivery, the issuing bank has to pay the invoice amount. So meaning you are not taking risk from an Iranian buyer or an Iranian company, you are taking a risk from an Iranian bank, which is better, a bit better than taking risk from the buyer. Then in here we have a request to confirm a letter of credit. What it means that the Finnish bank in this case, they confirms the letter of credit saying that let's take Handelsbanken, they are quite active in the region. So Handelsbanken confirms the letter of credit, and what that means is that when you are making the delivery, when you are fulfilling the terms of the sales contract and the terms in the letter of credit, Handelsbanken promises you to pay the money. So usually it happens when you are shipping out the goods you have promised to deliver. And when you get the, let's say, the freight documents, so you show the freight documents to the bank and then you get your money. But when it's confirmed, then Handelsbanken promises you to pay the money. And instantly you are not taking a risk anymore from an Iranian country or from the Iranian bank. So you can shift your risk to the Finnish bank in here. Just deliver the machinery and do the work you have promised. You get the correct documents for the letter of credit and you will get your money from the Finnish bank. All of this works with the banks. It might be that Finnvera is asked to cover some of the risks. We usually then deal with the banks here in Finland, but this always starts that you contact the Finnish bank first. So if you are trying to make some kind of sales, contact your local bank. They have their trade financing in Helsinki usually, and they will give you an idea how long of a letter of credit is possible. Could it be 4 months, 6 months? I would say that 2 years is a kind of the maximum at the moment. But if it's a more riskier country, which you can check from our website, it usually says in there that short-term payment period is okay, but usually we would like to use letter of credits. And then you know that, well, I call my bank, or of course you can contact Finnvera directly. But with these, you can offer, let's say, 1 to 2 years. Then we do have buyer's credit guarantee for the 10 million euros plus cases, and then we can discuss about 5 to 7 years payment periods. But I didn't take an example of that in here. These are the most basic ones, and as you could see with the credit guarantees, you can start with, let's say, 10,000 euro deals, and even less, and it can easily go up to 2 million euros. So with these two, you can handle most of the cases Finnish SMEs are doing in these countries. And that's about it, with an idea worth of pursuing the rush for finance. In general, what I could say, the Iraq and Iran, they have opened a bit. We have had some, let's say, difficulties in getting the money out. Companies doing business in Iran, they haven't been able to get the dollars out of the country. So the invoicing has been done to, let's say, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, because there you can get your money back. But it can be done, and it is done at the moment. So we have even companies here in Satakunta doing business there. But these are the two easiest ways of doing it. Thank you.